Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. All right, what's happening, everybody? Right back with the Lights Out podcast. You know we love it when we get to do these deep dives. We got special guests, and this is a great one right here. I'm just going to let Miguel, Mike, just let everybody know what we got going on here. This is fantastic. Super excited for this one.
Let me start. We're about to run wild on the translator for the American top team. Now, this is a special treat for us. That's all I got to say. Go ahead, Miguel.
Yeah, we got Alex Davis here with us. Alex, fans of the UFC, you've probably seen him in the ring, doing interviews, translating for the guys. He does a hell of a lot more than just translate, let me tell you. And I think if somebody needs straightening out, Alex might be one of the guys that you send in there to straighten people out as well. Because talking about a guy that, as far as I can tell, he was with Top Team, now about 50 years or so.
Before it was not even American Top Team.
So you're a guy who was there from the roots, which means we get to ask you about all the relationships back to Brazil and all that stuff, which it's going to be
up. I brought all the first Brazilians up. I got all their visas. I did all their stuff.
And so let's just we're going to get into it from the very beginning. Alex, you started talking about coming up to Indiana, and I think probably the first time we may have met or were around each other was at that big Jamie Levine show in Indiana.
Oh, no, we met in Hook and Shoot first.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that was my show, and I'm grateful.
That was Miguel there.
Yeah,
but
Jeff.
But Mr. Jamie Levine did a big show in Evansville, and the headline fight was, to be honest, a world-class fight. He invited me as a judge, and it was Jose Pele Landi from Brazil against Dave Menne. And, this was, it's an incredible fight to make for the time period, for all the criticism Levine gets, and a lot of it is warranted, right? That's a fight, that's a fight I would have wanted to make, back in the old days. Come on, Alex.
That fight. So Pele had this thing where he thought he had this ritual that he needed to have sex before a fight if not he didn't fight well. So somehow he found a hooker in Indiana. I didn't even know they had there, but he found a hooker.
Cigarettes.
And he called her, and she said, "How much?" He said, $100. And so he gave her $100 and said, just a minute. And she went back out to the car, and she got in the car, and he saw that she was going to drive away. So he ran after her, and he tried to stop her, and he got on top of the car and dented the car and got really furious. And he came back to the hotel lobby in a huff and a puff, and she called the police. So everybody was trying to tell him, "Hey man, you gotta go to your room because the police come here, they're going to arrest you." And now they called me, and I'm saying, "Pele, this is not Brazil. You beat up the car. They called the police on you. They're coming to get you." No, I'll tell the sheriff she stole $100 from me, and he'll understand. He's a man too. I said, "No, Pele, it doesn't work like that here, man. They're going to take you to jail." He says, "No, they won't. You want to see the sheriff's going to come and you translate for him?" I said, "Pele, in any other place in the world, maybe, but those guys with those white capes and the crosses? They're from someplace around here. I don't think it's a good idea." And Pele looked at me and said, "Oh, those guys are from here. Okay, I'll go to my room now."
Hey, how did you do in the fight?
Theft of services. So
how did you do in the fight?
It was a very close decision. Pele lost by decision, and then when Pele went out, the first guy he encountered was Matt Hughes, and they almost got in a fight. Yeah, because Matt Hughes used to hate him because he beat Pat Miletich in the prior event.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I judged the fight, and I gave Menne the first round, I gave Pele the second round, and I had to call the third round a draw. So I was the one descending judge that made it a whatever you want to call that, a split decision or however. I think it turned out to be a majority decision. Yeah.
Well, Dave almost caught Pele in a knee bar. If I recall, he stayed in that knee bar for almost all of the first round. Remember that?
Right. Yeah. That's why you can't not give him the first round. I mean, Pele felt like, hey, you didn't do anything to me. It's like, well, you were forced to defend the whole time. I got to give him the round, you know?
Yeah.
But they got mad at me. I remember that's where I learned the Brazilian word brincadeira. Because they told me,
a good one, huh?
which basically means it's like a fucking joke. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a fucking joke. So Pele, who I knew because we've been to Brazil, you know, I've been to Brazil a bunch of times. So Pele and his coach Rudimar come to me to complain about the decision, not knowing I was one of the judges. He'd say, who the fuck is judging there? I was like, well, I was a judge. I stood my ground. I told him, it's like, look, I judged it a draw, you know. But yeah, they were a little mad.
So just looking at you guys, I start recalling all these crazy things. But you know what? You guys have all, except for Chris, who still fought a little bit. You guys are back in your living rooms. I'm still doing this shit. I was in the fucking bus that McGregor attacked. It was me that held on to Khabib. Khabib said I got him in a chokehold, and I did not. I talked him out of. I said, Khabib, you better sit down. These guys might have guns. I'm not afraid of guns. I said, yeah, but if you get shot, you're not going to fight for the title tomorrow. And we started talking, and then McGregor showed up on the window. He started trying to jump out. I said, Khabib, listen to me. If you jump out, you're not going to fight for the title tomorrow. Wait for another day. And he even said that on ESPN. It was funny shit. But you know, Chris, Miguel, Mike, I'm still in this crazy world. I mean,
I know. Talk about it. You were at Las Vegas this past month with a few fighters. Now, how does that work? So you get the call. You're part of the team that's going to go there. What'd you do? Spend like 3 weeks in Vegas and watch over like 5 fighters or whatever? You go through like that last month that you just
the process.
Well, I had Poliana Viana, who was the girl that beat up that robber in Brazil. I had her on the first weekend. I guess you guys are aware, right? She called me up and said, Alex, I think I'm in trouble. This guy tried to steal my cell phone, and I beat the shit out of him. And I said, no, I think you're not in trouble. I think you're going to be famous. And it's on CNN, BBC, CNN. She fought the first weekend, and then I had a kid called Andre Muniz, who's a phenom. He's a fucking phenom, a jiu-jitsu phenom. He got the bonus on the second week, and then I was going to have Thiago versus Glover on the third weekend, but first Glover tested positive for COVID. The fight got transferred to the island, and now Thiago tested positive. So that got stretched. So I was going to stay 3 weeks. I didn't stay 3 weeks. I'd only stay 2 weeks. It's crazy.
It's work.
I mean, yeah, well, it's work. You go there, you get tested, you stay 24 hours on quarantine. Once they see you're negative, you're free to go wherever you want. And then before the weigh-ins, they test you again. And then you can do whatever you want. And then you get tested the night before the event, and then you have to stay quarantined until after the event. It's different, you know, we're accustomed to crowds and everything. And it's got a different feel. But I think that this is going to be positive for the sport because of one thing. Everybody can hear the instructions. It's so much easier to see and for the uneducated to understand what's happening in the fight. You know, I think that's a big positive. But it's a strange vibe. You know, you don't have the crowds, you don't have the cheering. It's different.
So at the American Top Team, you know, first off, we're like giant nerds. So like whatever happens in the ring is excellent, but behind the scenes stuff is kind of like where we dig in. So were you around when Josh Barnett and Hector Lombard had their little scrap at the American Top Team?
I was not there. Hector is a good friend of mine, but he's completely nuts.
Could you tell us about it?
No, I wasn't there. I know that they had a problem from way back in Australia. I didn't even realize they got into it at American Top Team. But Hector, listen, I'm a judoka, and I'll train with anybody. I don't train with him because it's a lose-lose situation. Probably I'll get my ass whooped, and if I do throw him, I'll get my ass whooped too. So he's just nuts. I was there once when they were wrestling, and this little D1 wrestler, probably a 155er, or 145er. They didn't see him, and he went and wrestled with Hector, and the little kid got under Hector and skied him, and man, that was hard to hold on to Hector after that, you know.
It's me, Seldretti, host of the Follow the Movement podcast. Walk with me as I take you on a journey covering all things football, military, music, my life, and everything in between. When I wake up in the morning, I ask myself, what's the move for today? So I ask you, what's the move for you? Click the link in the show notes and join me as we make the move together. Thank you for your time, and remember to follow the movement. Peace.
Yeah, I heard he's a loose cannon. Yeah, the rumor was that Barnett, I guess he leg locked him or something, and Hector went out to his car and got a baseball bat.
Yeah, Hector's like that. He's pure Cuban. I fought many Cubans in my life, and they're all like that. Yeah,
I could imagine. Now, I know it's kind of a controversial person to bring up, but it was in a public eye. What was your dealings with Hermes Franca, and what are your feelings about him?
I love him. I see him all the time still, and I've been to Puerto Rico like 3 times. Last time I got him tickets. He took my wife. I had to go to the venue with the fighters. He took my wife with his wife to the event. The problem with Hermes is a problem that we still live with. These kids, they come from, like, Hermes was a car washer, a flam guy, and then the guy becomes famous, and that process to deal with the notoriety and the fame and everything, it's very difficult, and not only Hermes, but there's a number of fighters, especially coming from Brazil, especially coming from very poor backgrounds, and they get famous and they make some money, and then they don't know how to deal with that, and it's with everything they do and all the fame they get, then they end up in obscurity again because they didn't know how to handle it. I have a bunch of cases like that.
Now, do you take that upon yourself to try and, there's coaches for how to fight, there's coaches for how to train, but as far as other aspects of life, they have to look to someone like you to kind of mentor them and try. I know it's probably hard for a lot of people to listen, but do you try and take that role on sometimes and mentor them and like, hey man, you do this and that?
Chris, I do, because I really take management as a more personal thing, a more human thing than other managers. I'm not like maybe a Malky, nothing against him. He's just a number guy.
Yeah.
Or Ali, who says he's a good guy, but he's not really. I really do, but it's very difficult to defend a man from his own self. Take Bigfoot. I made Bigfoot $5 million in his life. And dude, he's broke. He's living in Brazil, completely broke. I told him 7 or 8 fights ago, I said, listen, Bigfoot, I'm going to get you 3 fights so you can make enough money so you can do something with it. And I got him his 3 fights, and it didn't help, man. He went and bought Porsches in his wife's name and in his daughter's name. People would, like with Bigfoot, he tried to hang around. He was big and famous, and he was trying to hang around with big and famous people. And the MMA, the MMA salaries doesn't fit that budget, and it's happened to Anderson too. Anderson was trying to follow the big soccer players in Brazil. I mean, I think Anderson's okay now, but it's difficult to deal with the notoriety, and I keep on having this problem, It's very human.
It's I remember, if I remember correctly, Hermes Franca did his first fight for me, and just to give myself a little pat on the back, we had 2 guys debuting in that fight. It was Mike Brown versus Hermes Franca.
I was there. I remember that one.
Great fight.
That's nuts.
But yeah, so from there stems the whole relationship where now Mike Brown is been with Top Team, almost as long as you have. He's still there too. So
yeah, he's a coach.
It's a nice thing, and that really interestingly shows, illustrates a little bit of the difference of how things can go. Yeah, from that one fight, they both debuted. They both made careers, won belts.
Yeah, but I think that Mike came from a more structured background. Hermes came from a very, very poor background, you know.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that's going to be the difference in many of those situations.
People talk about good managers, and I always see these guys say, oh, well, he's the best man in the world. He's the best. Okay, cool. I'd like to see you manage Bigfoot, John Lineker, Alex Cowboy, Maria Agapova. I'd like to see you manage those nutcases.
A lot of personality.
How good you are.
Hermes Franca knows the six-toed girl, Chris, so just so that you know.
What's that?
Hermes Franca knows the six-toed girl, just so that you know. But now let's Alex, talk about Bigfoot, because I remember Bigfoot almost taking the head off of a couple of Bodog executives at the airport in Vancouver. You remember that situation?
You want to talk about that?
Talk about another situation where Alex saved the day here.
Well, that was funny because, you know, he thought he was going to get cash. And of course, there was only checks. And we went to cash the check, and we couldn't cash the check. And we got back to the airport, and here the whole Bodog team was about to board the plane to go to Russia. And Bigfoot got in front and said, nobody's boarding no fucking plane if I don't have my money. Remember Eric Nichols? And Eric Nichols was shitting in his pants. Oh,
I remember Eric Nichols.
And they got us a van, and they took us to a strip bar, and they did everything they could to take care of Bigfoot. When he gets in a bad mood, is a pain in the ass, man.
He first of all, there are a couple of things too there. The fight didn't quite go his way. It was probably a fast stop. You know what I mean? In terms of things,
he was ready to sweep. What's his name? I forgot the name.
Eric Pele, the big kid. He was a good fighter, you know, but it was a fast stop. So he was very dissatisfied, like immediately leaving the ring. And then the part of it is, you know, when you talk about a guy with a little bit more of a humble background, it's like, you know, I think at some point they handed him Canadian money, and it's like, what the fuck is check? Okay, in Canadian dollars or something. Yeah. So anyway, the whole exchange thing, he didn't want to do the math. He wanted it kept simple.
Bigfoot's Bigfoot.
So with the history of Brazil, I mean, obviously with fighting going so far back, whenever these Brazilians would come into, you know, the the vision of the rest of the world, they were always accompanied with like crazy records, and it always appeared to me as kind of made up. So like Marco Ruas, who I've got the utmost respect for, like that's one of my favorite Brazilian fighters ever. How come him and Rickson never fought?
Well, Marco, let me tell you something about Marco. Marco's a very good friend of mine. I'm here today doing what I do thanks to Marco. Okay, I trained with a very prominent Brazilian judo guy, 7-time Brazilian champion, who used to own a school with Marco. When I was coming to the States, he introduced me to Marco, and we got to be friends. And Marco, he asked me to help him out with seminars and stuff like that. I got him a bunch of seminars. I got kicked 2 times in the leg by that motherfucker. And he said, oh, stand in front of me, I'll show you a leg kick. And I was dumb enough to do it, and I can still feel the pain today. Anyway, what happened there was that in reality, Rickson didn't want anything to do with him. Okay, I mean, what Head Gracie wanted is they wanted to set up a fight behind closed doors, and Ruas said, no, I want to do it in the stadium. I don't have any reason to go behind closed doors. I want to fight in the stadium. If you want to fight, nothing against Rickson, I'll fight him, but it has to be in the stadium. And you know, I mean, Rickson, I don't know him personally. I know of people that have trained with him. He really is really good at jiu-jitsu, but it's not jiu-jitsu, it's MMA. And I think Marco would have just mauled him because Marco's coming up with jiu-jitsu not to be submitted by everybody in any place else. I mean, first of all, Rickson would never even come close to getting the fight to the ground. And not only that, Rickson at that time was at the most 180. Marco is like 220, you know?
Yeah.
So really,
you know, Alex, you and I might be the only 2 people that consistently say that.
No, but I know better than that. You see, the guy that I used to train judo with was 7 times Brazilian champion, okay? He was one of the best athletes I've ever seen. Okay, not only was he that, he was also, his name was Virgilio. He's famous till this day. He was the best beach soccer player at 220 pounds. He was the best beach soccer attacker in Rio at that time. Now at 220 pounds, to be able to do that on the sand, you can imagine what kind of an athlete he was. So Rickson invited him to his school, and he rumpled Rickson. And I've heard this. He never said that because he's really humble, but I've heard jiu-jitsu guys tell me this, you know. And when I asked him, I said, hey, yeah, Rickson's pretty good, you know. So Rickson is good in jiu-jitsu. He's very good, but it's jiu-jitsu. It's not judo. It's not MMA. It's not other stuff. And then they inflated all those records and say he never fought anybody. Come on.
Well, what about Sergio Penha?
Well, hold on. Go ahead.
Sergio Penha is another monster. He's a very good friend of mine. I know him very well. I've trained extensively. Well, I don't say I have trained extensively with him. I've got my ass whooped extensively by him. He's fucking good. The last time I trained with him, he was rumpling. I said, stand up if you're a fucking man. He stood up, and I tossed him on his ass, and I said, that's enough now.
We're done.
I quit. Yeah, I retire.
Well, I wanted to ask you because Mike brought up Rickson, and Rickson's the guy, you know, in many places, he's the guy with that legendary
the holy
status,
grail.
that holy, you know, and the only other guy that I've heard other jiu-jitsu people say, like, that aren't associated with him, that's on that level, was Liborio. And I know that you have a very good relationship with Liborio as well. So why don't you start off with Liborio Rickson comparison from what you know, and then we'll talk about Liborio and stories there, because I also do want to know why Liborio actually never really sunk his teeth into MMA.
I'm Shannon Jimenez Sasson, a former NYPD misconduct investigator, a podcaster, and a videographer.
I'm Nat W. I've been a social worker for a hot minute.
Working alongside the police left us with more doubt than encouragement.
We've tried in our career fields to be doers, and it still feels impossible.
Is it even possible to work alongside the police and not be part of the police state?
Fixing it does start with having the conversations.
It's everything that you should know about the police. It's going to be a hard conversation, but it's a hard topic. Not an Arc podcast premieres Tuesday, January 17th on all streaming platforms.
Liborio's a monster. Okay, I've never trained with anybody, and I've never seen anybody. He'd listen. Liborio would get to American Top Team, having drunk all night, reeking of alcohol, and would whoop everybody's ass for Dan. Have to say stop because you're messing with their minds. He's the guy that dude, it's just a monster. I mean, listen, he's my judo student. I had a judo class, and I had a lot of Olympic level judo guys that have come, and we both come in with the purple belt and whip all their asses. Roddy Ferguson, everybody knows who Roddy is, right?
Right.
Man, Roddy couldn't stand a chance with Liborio, nor stand up, much less on the mat. I could stand my own stand-up. I could actually throw him and piss him off, but on the mat, man, it's just impossible. He's just so, and it's not like he did anything amazing. It's just so precise and so strong and so methodical. You knew what he was going to do, and you just couldn't keep him from doing it, you know? So I never saw Rickson roll. I sincerely think that if he went against Liborio, I never seen anyone. I've seen Liborio rumple Marcelo Garcia. You know, I did. This guy's at just another level. You know,
from what I've been told, I mean, from what it sounds like to me, I've always, you know, I've never been around Liborio, but I always wanted to be like him. They say he'll just come in there, like, not even be. Just kind of come in, like you said, might be drinking the day before or something, come in and go with the top guys and just school them and just piss them off. They're standing up, throwing shit down and getting mad. And he just like, what? I mean, that's what I want to be, the guy who can just kind of walk in off the street, roll with the best guys in the world and whip their ass and have them pissed off. That's what I hear about.
Simple techniques, nothing, you know, you think, oh, he's going to come with these flying, nothing like that, just little simple techniques, man, but he catches you every fucking time.
That's what I heard.
Last time I trained with him, he ripped my groin because he was going to fight Zemario, and he asked me to help him with Uchimata. And we started doing right side Uchimata, and I started telling him we did 1, 2, 20, 30. And then all of a sudden he does it left, and I wasn't expecting it. He hurt my groin. I said, hey, boy, you were doing right side. Why did you change left? I said, I can't tell the difference.
Wow.
Oh, that's good to know the 30th time in, huh? Yeah. So Liborio becomes American top team, and he's one of the original guys from the Carlson Gracie team and what was Brazilian top team there. Now, I'll ask you, why Liborio? Because if you look at, especially when you consider MMA resumes, Sperry, who you just mentioned, Murilo, there were guys, you know, with more MMA experience, which is kind of a top team was going to be MMA oriented. How does Liborio work? Is it really just because is it because he's just the magic boy? And you know, is it all mat based?
In jiu-jitsu, yeah. In jiu-jitsu, I mean, listen, you asked why he didn't get good in MMA. It's just because he's not a competitive mindset guy. He's just he's not like Chris will get in there and just let it all hang out. He had a problem competing, you know, a little bit of a mental block. But with jiu-jitsu, nor Zemaru, listen, I've passed Zemaru's guard and rumpled him. Never even come close to do that shit with Liborio, you know. Never trained with Murilo. Murilo, to me, was one of the most intelligent fighters to ever step in the ring, you know. But they say that jiu-jitsu, Murilo none of them could stand their own with Liborio. How did he get to American top team? Because he was friends with Marcelo Silveira. And I guess they got in contact, and he wanted to break off. He wanted to come to the States, so that's how that happened.
Okay, so through Conan and his brother.
Yeah,
that's how I figured. All right, so I think I met you in 2004, and
looks familiar, but you might have had longer hair and
some hair. Yeah. So in 2004, the Ironheart Crown was in Hammond, Indiana. So it's a suburb of Chicago. And Thiago Alves fought Jason Chambers on the card. And you guys had Jay-Z fight Bart Pelazewski. Bart obviously went on to fight in the UFC. But as I was tearing down and we were getting everything together to leave, Liborio and Carlson Sr. for about 20 minutes had a screaming match. Like they were just yelling at each other. Do you remember that?
No, I was not there. 2004, I heard about it, but I was always there. But we had a rule in the school that we knew about the problem, but we wouldn't take sides because everybody had a huge respect for Liborio and huge respect for Carlson. So and Conan was Carlson's student, so we didn't get. I mean, those things happen. You know, Liborio said that he started charging more money and wasn't there to train the guys. And Carlson said that they dumped on him. I don't know the truth, you know.
It was ugly. Yeah,
to be honest with you, and I know a lot of those guys, and I actually met Carlson, and Carlson was obviously, you know,
Senior was the man.
Yeah, he was a worldly guy. Like his English wasn't very good, but his Spanish was, right? So I mean, I've actually had conversations with him and explained Abu Dhabi rules to him and stuff like that, like back in those days and stuff. And the problem there is you've got, you know, 6 or 7 geniuses in the room and maybe enough money for like 2 of them. You know what I mean? It's like the pie wasn't big enough back then, you know? And
I don't know about that. Once it
blew up, but
once they started going to Japan, the money started flowing. But we all know how corrupt things were in Japan in those days, you know. Yeah, it was bad in Japan.
Oh yeah.
So did you ever have any interactions with Wallid, Ismail?
I had to ask that. That's my arch enemy in the whole business. I hate that guy's guts.
Really?
I had no idea.
Well, here's I'm going to let Alex obviously tell the story, but I have a friend named Shu Harada who works in the business, who's a Japanese translator and stuff, and he gets around, and I believe he witnessed a fist fight between Alex and Wallid where a restaurant in Brazil got busted up. So I'm going to let Alex take it away from there.
Well, listen, first of all, okay, you see I speak English just like you guys, and I speak Portuguese like them. I'm known in Brazil for judo, not for MMA. I never got involved in MMA, but I'm Texan. And I don't back down to anyone, okay?
Should.
I'm sitting at the damn restaurant, and this guy comes at me, you know. I say, hey, okay, you want to fight? We're fighting, you know. And I start clocking him, you know. I kicked him. I'm street fight. I kicked him in the balls, and he tried to grab me. I kneed him in the balls. I hit him, you know. And he tried to take me down, and I tried to throw him, and in the scramble, I ended up underneath him, and we broke a bunch of chairs and tables. And
what started it?
I don't know. He attacked me.
No words.
What was it? A porcal? Was it one of those restaurants?
Yeah, no, it was a small restaurant beside the UFC event hotel on the Baja.
Oh, okay.
Listen, let me tell you something. Eric Silva was there. Fabi Gugel was there. Gistaki was there. Glover was there. Everybody saw. Everybody gave me the victory. Everybody said I beat him up.
You got the decision?
Yeah, I got the decision. I hit him a bunch of. He managed when we fell down. In the scramble he ended up on top of me, and my guard passed. So he tried to hit me. I grabbed his hand. Then I caught his other hand. He tried to headbutt me. I took my hand out of the way, and somebody grabbed his hand. When they grabbed his hand, I saw that his hand was controlled by somebody else. I punched the fuck out of his hand. I followed up, you know. And then they separated. I had to pay the poor old lady. You see the motherfucker? That motherfucker can't even catch COVID. He's so fucking horrible. He can't even get sick. And and then I had to pay for the damn. He ran away. And
you should have ran. That's the move. You don't want to pay for that.
I'm not going to run from him. Fuck him.
I'm saying from the restaurant.
No, it happened 2 times. It happened again. So Bedell comes and we set up a truce where he's going to stay in his corner. I'm staying in my corner. And for about a year, we were in the same place. He'd stay over there. I'd stay over here. Wouldn't get in trouble. Then one day I'm coming out of the elevator and he's coming in. He says, "You piece of shit, turn that piece of shit yourself." And he comes up at me and I said, "Come on, man." And then they got in the middle of us again. So now I realize I'm going to have to fight him one of these. So I start boxing. I start liking boxing. You know, my dad was Golden Glove heavyweight, Golden Gloves for Texas, and I boxed a little when I was a kid, and I started liking it. So I'm in Belém and I'm sitting in a corner of the hotel. I'm sitting on a sofa working. All of a sudden, here that motherfucker comes again. But this time I'm ready for him. So when he comes, everybody held on to him. I said, no, let him go. Come on. And they let him go. He didn't come. He went. So he went out into the hotel reception. So I went out to the lobby. He started shouting at me. I said, "Come on, man. Come on." Because now I had open space. I would have kicked his ass. But he didn't come. He went out to the parking lot. So I tried to follow him, and they grabbed me. and Jorge Guimarães went out, and he ran all the way to the corner. Motherfucker, you know, that guy, and not only that, I don't like him, of course, because I don't like anybody who tries to attack me. And I don't like what he has done a lot of very bad things to a lot of fighters. He had one of the most prominent events in Brazil, which he could have done a bunch of good for the industry, and he's a thief. He's fucked everybody, you know. We don't. I mean, anybody. I should really set up a group of Brazilian fighters and just everybody tell the stories about him. But you know what?
We would be glad to guide them here. We could be guidance counselors.
We would hate to host that.
I was talking to Renzo. Did you see Renzo's argument with him?
Well, wait, let me ask you, let's finish up the Wallid story there, because Shu, my friend and translator who witnessed at least the first confrontation, at one point, and I love this because Americans kind of got pussyfied, and we settle things in court nowadays, you know what I mean? And I think Shu was ready to testify in court on Alex's behalf, but you guys had a truce, so the court or proceedings all went out the window. Go ahead, clean that up for me.
No. I called the police. I made a complaint. He ran to the sheriff's office and said I attacked him. So I said, "Shu, if this goes to court, I might need your testimonial because you saw he started it, okay?" But listen, that shit never works in Brazil, man. Listen, I'm resigned. then when he tried to attack me in Rio Grande do Sul, I made a complaint again, and I had it all on the hotel cameras and everything, and nothing happened. I'm resigned to the fact that if he attacks me, I'll fight him. I'm ready to fight him. I thank him. I'm in shape now. Designed the fact that if he comes at me, I'll fight him.
Interestingly, Mike, we found something in common between Brazil and our bare knuckle friends from the traveler community in England. No lawyers needed here.
Fuck that. It's not. Brazil does not have a
like libel courts, and that's what. Yeah.
It doesn't have restraining orders. You can't get a restraining order in here. Listen, Miguel. I'm a businessman. I'm a grandfather. I'm a judo player. I want to go to the Olympics. The MMA was when MMA started. I could have done that. I was trying to go to the Olympics in judo. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. While those knuckleheads were fighting, I had a sponsorship from the Bank of Brazil. I was another level. I was a bank manager. I didn't need to get. I was on the beach when Hugo fought Rickson, and I just took my kids and went to another place on the beach. I didn't want to have anything to do with that, Not that I've not fought. I've fought plenty of times, because when I moved to Brazil when I was a young kid, I moved from Texas to Brazil. I couldn't speak Portuguese, and Brazilian kids they bully you, and I could see they were bullying me. I couldn't understand what they were saying. So I fight them, and I got into judo because my dad got fed up with going to the principal's office and bailing me out because all the fights I got in, and so that's why he put me into judo. So he tried to calm me down because they were all trying to bully me. Fuck them.
I love it.
So, Chris, you fought Thiago. How many other top team guys did you take on? How many times did you look across the ring and see this guy here?
I don't know, man. Too many. I never liked fighting any of the Brazilian guys. I know it's going to be a tough day, So, but Alex, one thing I've always had a lot of respect for what they do down there at the American Top Team. It seems to me, and tell me if this has anything to do with you. It seems like they take care of their guys, especially by the point, like when you're an older fighter, you're done. It seems like a lot of those guys transition over into coaching for the American Top Team. Is that something you look into as far as exit strategy for how to do something after fighting?
Let's first of all put in perspective the fact that at American Top Team we have a man that is probably, and Miguel will know that, and you'll know that, Michael will know that, who's Dan Lambert, who's one of the best beings we've ever.
Oh yeah.
And we were the sport is lucky enough to have this guy interested 100%. And he's helped enough people to fill a football stadium, And it was funny because we built the first American Top Team. It's a funny story from beginning to end. Because first of all, he wanted he bought a 10,000 square foot building, and we couldn't get the city to approve the gym, and then. He said, well, I'm going to buy a $20,000 square foot in his realtor. And the lawyer said, you can't even open that. Well, I made more money. I wanted $20,000. So then we built the first American Top Team. And then I was married. I had 3 kids, and my wife went nuts and went back to Brazil and started snorting coke. And I couldn't raise my kids alone, so I left. And then he built another American Top Team, bigger one. Was awesome. And then he calls me up and tells me he's going to build a bigger one. I said, Dan, don't you remember all the headaches we've had with the first 2? I said, Alex, I made all the money I'm going to make in the world. I'm going to do something I want. He was kind of, Glenn kind of pushed him into that, and he ended up building the American Top Team today, which is it's as big as a hangar,
That's wild. Yeah,
I remember that story. I remember the 10,000 foot gym because. At the time, everybody's in a corner somewhere in the gyms, and he had a 10,000 foot gym, and I remember that he wasn't going to be able to get it open, and the story was that he asked for a 20,000 foot gym, and his advisor's like, what are you kidding me? And Dan, I've heard this, so it must be a habit of his or a story that's getting around, but Dan has a habit of looking at his watch for a little while and saying, well, I just made enough money to buy the fucking building, so just buy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what he said. We got out of the meeting, me, him, Marcelo, the realtor, and his lawyer, which is a friend of his. And he said to the realtor, he said, find me a 20,000 square foot building. And the lawyer said, man, are you crazy? You can't even open them. I said, I made more money since then. I wanted 20,000. That's exactly
wow.
I try not to tell Dan Lambert stories about his kindness because there'd be a block of people, a block long of people with their hands out. But that guy has done things for people that don't have no association with him whatsoever. That is truly shockingly kind.
I'm in Vegas. I'm running down the hallway, and I've got an American Top Team shirt on, and this couple run up to me. You're from American Top Team. You know Dan Lambert? I said, yeah, I know Dan. You won't believe what he did. We were at the ticket booth, and we were trying to buy tickets, and they didn't have those tickets anymore for us, and we were saying, oh, we can't go to the show. And Dan went and bought the more expensive tickets and gave it to the couple. Just there.
Yeah, he's probably one of the kindest people that I have ever encountered. Forget the sport. And, I've got very limited dealings with him, but what I know of him and his actions is truly an amazing human being.
When I was running amok doing my shows, it's like, there are a lot of people who probably want to punch me in the face, and, Dan and Alex would probably have to be like the top 2 or 3 guys on the list, along with Aaron Riley. Those 3 guys.
Aaron Riley's got a son in Brazil.
Does he?
Oh,
Aaron Riley's got a son in Brazil. This isn't news. But those 2 guys. Jeff could probably referee them punching.
Does he know that?
That way.
Well, he doesn't have it, but. He was at my house in the building caught fire, and we went to look at it, and this girl came in and says, "Is that American that fight?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can I speak to him?" I said, "He doesn't speak any Portuguese." She says, "Okay, can I kiss him?"
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. It's nice.
So, one of the things that we like to talk about, we had mentioned about, coaching and being a role model, and different components of life are really important to find in the gym. At one point, the American Top Team had Robbie Lawler, Colby Covington, and Jorge Masvidal all under one roof. And that's when I believe Robbie Lawler was the champion. How does that play out? Because all of them were entitled. Robbie was the champion, and Jorge and Colby were, wanted the belt. Like, how? What happens in the gym at that point?
When Robbie was champ, they were still a ways off that, And I think that the guy that was near the belt with Robbie was Tyrone, and it's one of the good things that it's Dan's role model. Even though people fight each other, we try to keep it fair. We try to keep people from not getting into other camps. It's inevitable if you have a bunch of champions, and you do what Dan did, which has not been replicated on any other place on earth. You're going to have these problems, and there's a lot of ego involved in fighting. There's a lot of emotions, and and Colby. I love Colby. Colby's not that dickhead he looks like when he's talking. He's really a really cool kid. And Jorge is a really good guy, and Robbie's a great guy, but when they're fighters and it's fighting, and so you have these arguments sometimes, and then some guys leave. Colby left. I don't remember why it was he left.
Tyrone's up with Duke Rufus now, no?
Yeah, but he's still American Top Team.
Oh, that's right. Mike Brown's been with. I think one of the ways
was with him, but Dean left.
Yeah, one of the ways I think you get around is a little bit of what we just mentioned there is you do have to throw resources at it. If Chris is paying $10,000 a month for training, and another guy comes in and he pops down his $10,000, well, they better be getting the same training level. So one guy better not be getting the same more attention than the other, et cetera. You can really only do that with good resources. It's like, all right, Liborio is going to be over here. You get Dean Thomas. You got professional and a level, and that's where the branding comes in.
Well, they managed to get it dialed in now. You got Conan as head coach. Conan is a very stable, very fair guy. And then you have a bunch of coaches. My son-in-law is a coach, Catel Cubis and Marcos Lamata and Steve Mako and King Mo, and they figure it out. It's not my thing is to get the fighters in there and get them fights. So that's what I interact a little bit when there's something I can do, when I can help and everything. But it's a team effort, you know. So I'm talking every day with Dan and with Conan and with Pahom. But let me tell you something. This is a situation that will not be replicated. There will not be somebody else on earth that's going to do what Dan did. And what we live here and how we interact with this and how fair we are with each other and how fair we are with the other fighters and our space and our history and everything that we've done and who we are is something that's not going to be replicated, you know. And probably when Dan passes, it's probably not going to stay there. I don't think anybody that doesn't have the passion and the kindness and everything that Dan has is going to keep that place going like that, you know.
But, you know, like we've all mentioned, the American Top Team isn't Dan's full-time job. You know, it's something he does as a passion project. And I talked to Miguel and Chris, I'm like, you've got a guy that's a legit top-tier businessman that's got a whole bunch of plates that are moving, and then he's got to sit down in front of a guy that wears a horrible suit, a Make America Great Again hat, that's pissing everybody off in the gym, and he's got to play HR. Like, I can't even wrap my head around that.
But let me explain you something that I've learned because you know what? I'm so fortunate by having met Dan, because it's funny, I'll tell you how I met Dan. I met Dan because I'm a judo player, right? And I
national champion.
Yeah, I was U.S. national and Brazilian national champion. So the first time I fought in the Pan American Jiu-Jitsu championships, I beat everybody. I just threw them all over the place, you know, and it wasn't even fair because these guys weren't my level, really grapplers, you know. And Dan saw that, and I had a team I had a school with Minotauro, with Big Nog, and Tuesday morning, big old car drives up onto the school. I'm scratching my head thinking I'm having to pay the bills. And Dan walks down and says, "Man, could you teach me? I saw what you saw at the Pan Ams. I want to learn that stuff." And I said, "Yeah, of course. Come to class." I said, "No, I want it now." I said, "Okay." So I started teaching him now. I taught him for an hour. That was awesome. I want another hour. So I taught him another hour. And I said, "Hey," so how much is it? I said, $100. He gave me 1,000. And then we started no, I don't need the 1,000. No, you keep it. I want to spend it. Finally, I had to close the school down, and he invited me over to Marcelo's school. And I still, for 2 years, I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and teach him judo, which is it's a very tough sport to teach adults. Kids learn it fast, but because of falling on. But he stuck with it for a long time, you know, when he was competing in jiu-jitsu and everything. And so at that time, you know, and then he said, "Well, I'm going to create this school, and I want you to manage it, and this team, and I want you to manage it and everything, because I'm bringing a bunch of Brazilians, speak Portuguese." And then we got to go to jiu-jitsu championships in Learjets. You know, I mean,
Jesus.
I'd meet him. We'd have a Monday morning meeting, and he said, "Alex, do the head count." We'd count everybody. I said, "Man, I have to rent two jets. You know." And then the first fight that we won in the UFC was Dean Thomas versus Matt Serra, and they'd announced the fight as Matt Serra having won.
Yeah.
But then he turned it over, and then I got to my room at the Trump Taj Mahal, and my luggage is gone. I called the person, "Hey, there's somebody stole my." No, Mr. Lambert changed rooms on you, and he put us in the presidential suite of the Trump Taj Mahal. Me, him, Marcelo, Hermes, and Dean, and he gave us the fuck money to hire hookers. But Marcel would.
Which you didn't do.
No.
They saved the money. The money is still in the bank.
No. It wasn't that. Marcel gave the money back to Dan. The problem was that he'd call in the hookers, but he'd look at them and say, "They're not good enough, my guys. Send two more." And finally, we ran out of hookers, and there was no more hookers, so we ended up doing MMA with the butlers.
I was going to say, I heard many stories about them, like, you know, clearing out all the furniture of the suite and, like, doing fights up there, like, you know.
Yeah, we all kinds of crazy shit, man.
So let's talk about, I mean, we're obviously doing deep dives here. I'm going to throw a couple of names at you. Denis Kang.
Oh, Panface. My dear Panface. He looks like a pan. Very good friend of mine. He's been on the farm like Miguel. Very, very good fighter. Very, very good person. You know, I got him on Facebook. I talked to him once in a while. He was a great fighter, man. He was one of the best in those days. He was very, very good, you know.
Yeah, I think he's one of the fighters that the public eye never got to appreciate his skill as high as it was.
Yeah, I mean, the big fight that was supposed to happen was him versus Paulo Filho. It never happened. I think that would have been the fight that would have probably solidified his legend, you know, his legacy, and it never happened. I mean, Ben K used to say beat Paulo Filho. I don't know. Paulo Filho, not only was his juice to the gills, he's a good fighter, but that was the fight that never happened there.
So Marcus Aurelio was supposed to fight in M1, and I know there was like a lot of negotiations regards to it. Why did that fall apart?
I wasn't there when Marco Ruas started fighting, when he submitted Takenori Gomi. I was already in Brazil.
Badass.
Yeah, he was really, really good jiu-jitsu.
So how come him and M1 never worked out?
I'm not sure. I mean, listen, I'll tell you one thing. Edson Barbosa is from my hometown, and he's my son-in-law's best student. And I had I'd sold him to Tanikawa from K1 for K1 Max to fight. We already had a fight for him. But then Dan got in an argument with Tanikawa over Denis Kang and sued Tanikawa. And Tanikawa ended Barbosa's contract in revenge to Dan, and he didn't have anything to do with it. You know, so it was a crazy world in those days. I don't know. All I got was the fucking tail end of the deal, you know. So I don't know what happened with M1.
So what was the locker room like for Jungle Fight in the early days?
I only went to one Jungle Fight when I brought Todd Duffy to fight Alfredo Silva. And Wallid, and I got to Rio. I went to the fights. I had to go to my farm. And the minute I left the hotel, Wallid went up to Todd's room with a contract to try to get him signed with Wallid. And then Todd, but it was okay. It was a good locker room. It was in the same hotel, the Windsor Hotel. It was good, but there's a lot of hairy stories about things that happened in Jungle, unfortunately.
You mentioned steroids. So what's the deal with Brazil in terms of, like, you mentioned Paulo Filho, another guy who was a phenom from that era, you know, almost from the same roots, was Ricardo Arona, and he sort of went down the same hill.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about that. I for a time I was trying to help. When I went back to Brazil, I started because of the link between Liborio and Murilo and everything. I started helping them. I started to help picking up some of the guys at Brazilian Top Team, and Murilo asked me to try to get Arona a fight in America in the UFC, and I hit Joe Silva up. And Joe said he didn't like his fighting style. He knew it was good, but he was not exciting. It was boring. He just took people down and laid on top of them. That's why Joe didn't hire. And I also, Big Nog asked me to try to get Anderson Silva into the UFC after he fought in Pride, and he lost in Pride. And Joe didn't want him.
I could tell you why. I could tell you why, because remember, I went back in the old days. I went with Henry Matamoros to fight Rafael Cordero's last MMA fight. So I knew Rudimar and those guys real well. And at one point, I remember when Henry fought a fight in Atlanta, I was going out to corner him, and I turned around and Pele and Rudimar were behind us. They came out and cornered Henry out of respect for him, right? They asked me to get Anderson Silva in the UFC, and I got it done. And basically, they had the contract in hand, and that's when, as you said, they went to Pride. They went to Pride and kind of dicked me and dicked that contract, but they were making more money there. I couldn't say anything, but I believe Joe Silva held a grudge there.
Yeah, he did. Now that you mentioned that, there was the same thing with Murilo. Murilo wanted to come back to the UFC, and I was not able to get the deal done. They wanted to hire Murilo, but Murilo knew that they were going to fuck with him, and he tried to put a bunch of guarantees in the contract, and Dana and Joe didn't accept it.
So, I mean, and like you're in the industry, and you might not be comfortable answering this, but like, when we're up here and we look at the Brazilian fighters fighting in the UFC, a lot of them don't pass the eye test. And we're always scrutinizing USADA Brazil. What is your experiences with USADA Brazil?
No. USADA Brazil is a serious organization. Okay, don't mistake that. That's a mistake. People mistake that. But let me tell you something. Okay, I'm a really adamant. Listen. I can't win a raffle. So when it comes to judges' decisions, I'm the baddest luck on earth. And I've been at the wrong end of so many. Listen, I was on the wrong end of Barboza versus Felder, on the wrong end of Barboza versus Iggy, at the wrong end of Zapata versus Hall. So many bad decisions where I started thinking about this, and I wrote an article. Miguel, did you look at the article?
I tried to find it, but I couldn't get into it. But I'm gonna
Alex
let you read
Davis. It's on. All you have to do is put Alex Davis, search Alex Davis in MMA Junk, you'll find it.
I tried to look at that too. I couldn't find it.
I'll send it to Miguel for you. I just got his
okay.
website. So what I say in this article is, listen, the judging is completely. It's crazy. It's completely berserk. For example, let me ask you a question. Do you think these commissions do eye tests for the judge? They do not do them. Listen, you can't judge a fucking fast-moving fight if you don't have 20/20 eyesight. Not only that, are we doing sobriety tests for these judges? We are not. Remember that they said Keith, in Dominic Cruz's fight, he said that Keith was smelling of alcohol. Keith is a serious guy. He smokes cigarettes, but he's a serious guy. But if you had sobriety tests in place, there would never be any doubt. And I've seen some of these judges completely hammered the night before the fight. Or let's say, how about a motivated reasoning screening test? Because you know that if Miguel fights and I judge Miguel, I'm emotionally incapable of judging it fairly. This is science. It's not me. It's not Alex. It's just science. We're incapable of judging, giving fair judgment to somebody that we have an emotional attachment of some kind to. So anybody that has a relation to a fighter shouldn't be judging. But these simple or psychological tests to see if this guy knows how to perform under pressure. 4 very simple prerequisites that should be done for judges that are not done. And I wrote the article and I sent it to Cristiano, who is the commissioner of MMA in Brazil, and he adopted all 4 measures immediately. He said, Alex, you're fucking right. This is right. And they're all,
you can't argue that.
All you have are black belts there, okay? Now, let me ask you, these fucking athletic commissions here, they don't give a shit. Look at what's happening in Vegas. I mean, I don't have anything personal against them, but, you know, we know that the system, the 10-9 system, is a system developed for boxing. It's not for MMA. First of all, the system's wrong, okay? And then you have these judges. You have this old lady, I don't remember her name. She can't, man, I tell you, if a buzzard...
I'll say her name, Adelaide Bird.
If a buzzard lands on somebody's head, she will not see it. You know, she can't, it's not her fault. She's an old lady.
She's got, I can tell you, she's got pristine qualifications.
Yeah, she's sleeping.
Back in the old days, she married a referee. So that's how you become a judge.
Whatever. It's just that the problem is that we're being judged. We're professionals, and we're being judged by people. You know, the fighter should have the right, after he's put so many months and so many years in his career, he should have the right to know what qualifies the people that are judging him. Who qualifies?
Alex, you know what I'd like to see done? I'd like to see a lot more fighters move into the role of being judges, because these people have never been in a fight in their life, and I think you get a much better perspective as fighters. And once again, we need to have some roles for people once they are done with the sport, the competitive side. I think that'd be a natural progression, something to be done.
That's common sense, but the world doesn't work like that. All these commissions, they're all politically hired people. Okay, they're people that don't. I've run into them time after time after time.
100% correct.
They don't know. They have no qualification for doing what they're doing. Listen, I'm the manager that's. Listen, when Rosimar Palhares fought John Fitch, remember that fight in WSOF? He let go Rosemar let go of John Fitch's ankle. Okay, he did not hold on to it. So Andy Foster's one of the better. Actually, the guy that now we're friends because of the argument I'll tell you that we had with him. He comes up and says, "Well, I'm going to suspend Rosemar." I said, "What do you mean you're going to suspend Rosemar? Let's look at the video." So I showed the video to him and I said, "He let go." "Yeah, but he has a history." I said, "Sir, but I'm sorry, but you're judging. You can't judge history. You got to judge this fight. You can't judge history." "Well, I came out of this fight just because of this fight." I said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but you're suffering motivated reasoning." You know, I know how to argue with these people, you know.
Yeah.
Andy actually, he got all red and all purple because a lot of people, I beat him in the argument. But the problem is that, you know, a lot of these people are not qualified to do the jobs they do. They have their badges and they wear their suits. Listen, you were talking, Miguel just reminded me of something. They was asking how the UFC is in the pandemic and everything. Okay, so you don't have any fighters, you don't have any corners, but you have like 100 fucking commission people. I don't know what they're all doing. I was looking at this and what are these guys doing? What's their function? You know?
Well, you know, and they're sitting in the back and they're collecting autographs. I mean, it's taking pictures. Like,
they're
are you here to work or
with their
what are you here to
badges
do?
and their suits and acting important? You know, MMA is the sport that it's unfortunate, but the sport has. You can become relevant in this sport. All you have to do is just parachute into it. And how many people do we know that have become relevant from day to night? They just jump into this sport, and it keeps on happening. You keep on seeing it all the time, and you know, I sit down with these people and I listen to them and I argue with them, and I'm on TV shows with them, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, and they're not even open to interviews. Like, they won't even let them. Here, let's hear them argue their points. You know, let's see how intelligent they are. Like,
why are you scoring these fights like this?
I believe the commission tells them that they're not allowed to do interviews.
Yeah, no, for sure they do. But you know, there's people that you might not agree with their decision, but if you argued with them, they could at least articulate how they got there, and whether you agree with them or not, the path that they take, you can go, well, I don't agree with it, but I at least respect that he knows what he's talking about. You know, give them that opportunity because it would expose the people that have no idea.
Well, let's take another sore subject. Look at our weigh-in system here, okay? Now, everybody's heard about ONE FC, right? One in Asia.
Same-day weigh-ins.
Oh yeah.
Okay. No, it's not same-day weigh-ins. It's not that.
No, it's 10% of your body?
No, it's nothing. It's much, much simpler. It's much more genius. What they do is they weigh the guys in 2 times, Thursday and Friday, okay? He has to make weight. First of all, they do not permit a guy. So if Chris fights at let's say Chris was fighting at 170, he's really at 180 and he dropped to 170 and then rehydrate, right? That's what everybody's doing. So I took John Lineker to one, and John was fighting at 145 where he was supposed to fight. He was fighting 135 here in the States, where he'd have to come from 145 and drop to 135 and come back. They had a person die, so they do not permit dehydration. So not only do you have to weigh in, you have to do a hydration test with the pragmometer, and you have to do it twice. So if you don't make weight, they will deal with that. But if you are dehydrated, they will not let you fight. They're really anal about it. Now, it's a genius. You know what happens is now you see all these fighters healthy and laughing and nobody's fucking suffering. First of all,
21, 31.
I'm out, guys. You guys,
Chris, hey, we'll keep going. Love you, Chris.
Talk later.
See you, Chris. See you, man.
He's playing hooky from work. That's what that is.
So anyway, so what happens is that they took the system. Matt Hume and Dr. Wang went to the ARP. They presented their system to the ARP. Everybody applauded it. But nobody. And you know what's so stupid about it is that this hurts the fighters. It hurts the promotions. It hurts the commissions. It hurts the fans. It hurts everybody. But we are incapable, simply incapable. In MMA, we are incapable of trying to change anything. Just can't do it. Just not.
Matt Hume might be one of the MMA's brightest minds.
He is. I talk to him practically every day. He's a very good friend of mine. I love him. And what I love about him is that when we talk maybe 3% about fighting, and we talk about all other subjects, which he's a very educated man. And you can talk about things. You can talk about guns and motorcycles and Sasquatch and viruses and stock market. You know, he's just such a guy. You know, and him and Dr. Wayne came up with this system, and I've told him 1,000 times. I said, Matt, you got to help get this thing out to the world because it'll help a bunch of people. But you know, they're you know, the big bully in the house is UFC, and they're always very scared. They have a little bit of they're very precautionary with what people might do with them. But it's a pity because the system is, and I've been on Twitter and I've argued and I've bitched and everything. And I'm getting old. I'm 58. I'm just not too old to pick up these fights anymore. But you know, I write, and what I do is I go out there and write. If you look at, go on MMA Junkie, just do this. Go on Google, put Alex Davis MMA Miguel. I've written a lot of things.
You read a lot.
Of things.
Yeah, you've got a lot.
Cool,
yeah,
cool.
You're not afraid to share your opinion. It's always
no, it's bullshit. You know,
it comes from a good. You know, it comes from a good like area. It's not just.
That's the thing is the guidance. The guidance from Lambert and from that source is like let's make it a fair playing field. You know, and if everybody's marching with that forward, I believe I did that. You know, when I had.
Yeah, but
my abilities to do that.
The world's not like that.
No, you face opponents all the time. But we're way over an hour. We lost Chris. We may have to do a part 2. But I do want to bring it back around and ask you about Jeff Munson because we're talking about one of the characters here. We're talking about little steroids using and stuff like that. What do you know about Jeff and the legendary Wizinator?
He's first of all, Jeff's one of my best friends. He used to babysit my kids. I used to babysit his kids. Put him in this fight against Rico Rodriguez. He's a dear friend of mine. I got him that fight in Brazil, remember?
Mangueira. He fought Mangueira.
Mangueira, that's it. I mean, Jeff is Jeff. He finds his shortcuts around stuff. I guess I wasn't there. I guess he used a false penis to pass a drug test, and they say he had to go out and fight with it. I mean, worse things can happen, but I still love Jeff to pieces.
He passed the test, though, right?
Hey,
he's one of the craziest guys. You know what he did with Dennis Hallman? He got Dennis Hallman's house, and Dennis wasn't there. He went into the house. It was a small house. He took all the furniture out and mounted the living room up on the roof.
Yeah, I've heard that story. He took all Hallman's furniture and put it on the roof of Hallman's house.
Yeah,
at one point.
He set up the living room on the roof.
That's amazing.
You know, so how about Abu Dhabi and Sao Paulo when he fought Saulo Ribeiro?
In Sao Paulo, yeah, when he lost the fight, the story, what he did was he took off his shorts and marched naked into the back room.
Took off all his clothes and walked out of the stadium.
He did it at the Arnold's, too.
Before he walked down the stadium, he went into the back, and what was hilarious was that we're in there, and he kicks open the door, and he's buck naked. And, you know, he's lying on his back doing scissor, you know, warming up was Marcelo Garcia, and he's sitting there lying there, and Munson's standing over him naked all of a sudden after slamming the door. The look on Marcelo's face was sheer panic. It was like, oh, my God. I heard those shorts now hang on the wall of like a restaurant or something, or at least spend some time hanging on the wall of a restaurant that the guy who caught them in the audience put them in his shop.
Yeah.
You know, he did the same thing at the Arnold's. He was on the receiving end of like a bad decision on a grappling match, and he just got naked. The whole place erupted. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you, like I saw him naked. I recommend he keep his clothes on.
Okay, guys, I got to run too, man.
Wait, real quick. One more. We do an asshole game. Let's just run through names. It's asshole or not, and then we'll let you out of here, right? We've taken up more of your time.
Tell me.
All right, Miguel, you start.
Jamie Levine.
I can't define Jamie. He was an asshole and he wasn't an asshole. I got along with Jamie. He was a crazy guy. I didn't have a problem with him, you know. I almost drowned him once. He tried to wrestle me in a pool with a bunch of high school girls, and I was mad at him, and I kept him on the bottom, and Wade realized I was trying to drown him and pulled me off of him.
Okay. All right. Ed Soares.
I love Ed. I get along with them. I love Ed. I just with this fight between with Glover and Thiago, I woke Ed up and said, "Well, Ed, hey, listen, I love Ed. I get along with him fine."
Jeff Osborne.
Oh, I love Jeff. He's a good guy.
How about
Josh Barnett.
I don't know, John.
Joe Ricardo.
From Brazil.
Yeah.
I don't know him very well. I know I was at that fight when that kid Flavio Alvaro was fighting that big wrestler. And he had, remember when Randleman fought Bas Rutten?
Yeah.
And mopped the floor with Bas Rutten, and they gave the decision to Bas Rutten.
Well, I think Boss won the fight, but yeah, I remember that day.
No, he didn't. He won the fight. He didn't win the fight. But Joe Ricardo was in Flavio's corner and said, "Hey," and this big old guy has poor Flavio Alvaro, not Flavio Alvaro, was another kid.
Flavio Moura.
Yeah, Flavio Moura had him, and Joe Ricardo says, "Get up," because he doesn't know how to choke anybody. Dude, with biceps that size, you don't even need to know. He had to do a squash. So, but I don't know him very well.
All right, one last name, Ryan Gracie.
I don't know Ryan. I never met him. Okay. I know I know Renzo very well. I really like Renzo. I respect Renzo a lot. I guess that Ryan was probably a good guy, just a problem child, you know. No, I don't, those people I didn't know. I never got to meet.
So who's it besides Wallid? Name one other person who you don't like. Let's put you on the spot here.
Let's put it, not that I don't like personally, is I don't like what he has done to the business as Ali. I think that what the way Ali is doing things, the way he's becoming prominent, the way he is getting big in this business in a way that it's completely unhealthy for the business. It's not personal, it's just the way I see it.
Excellent. Alex, thank you. Absolute professional, man. Sincerely appreciate your time.
I love it, man. I love
catching me up anytime. I'm coming to Costa Rica. Now you have my WhatsApp. I'm coming to Costa Rica to meet you, okay?
Okay, perfect, man. You can stay here or we'll get you a hotel better for you. But you're more than welcome. I'd love to have you. I'm going to have a party down here one day. It's going to involve a lot of people.
Okay, I love you, man. What happened to Calvin Harris? Where's that guy?
He's still in the sports book business, but the fight business, he was a fan and he enjoyed it, but he didn't have the Dan passion, the Fertitta passion, and he's not in a fight game anymore. He's around and he makes money here. One of the other guys from one of the other sports books they found dead a couple of years back. So they're all under a lot lower profile here in Costa Rica nowadays. And I'm poor, so nobody cares about me. So.
Yeah, you know what? I'm poor too, but I got great stories.
Yeah, that we got. No one's taking our stories away from us. Hey, this is the Lights Out podcast. We lost Chris as a first responder. He's doing something more important, but I know he had a lot of fun talking to Alex Davis. They go back a long way as well. Alex Davis, a pleasure to have this guy here. We got into just the tip of the iceberg of the stories. I'm thinking we may have a part two at some point. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks again. Bye-bye.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.